Fiji, a South Pacific haven, has been compromised by a doomsday cult called Grace Road. They exerted brutal control over its followers, all while engaging global authorities in a prolonged, evasive struggle. Operating freely, the cult established an expansive business network across the island, openly supported by the government. Their aspirations didn't stop there. After a series of raids, they rapidly grew their operations from over 30 enterprises to 54. Do we look like a bird? Reports describe members facing inadequate food, substandard living conditions, excessive labor far beyond typical work standards, and even physical abuse. I realized my passport was gone. I was panicking a lot, screaming for help. This narrative delves into religious extremism. The cult's core mission is to ready itself for the Great Tribulation, or Armageddon, the impending end of the world. It also concerns a government deeply intertwined with their operations. The church successfully cultivated favor with high-ranking officials within the former administration. Our latest investigative report, or piece, is currently with our legal team, as a demand was issued that your production company's permits be immediately revoked. We're essentially suppressing crucial stories about a whole nation held in the chokehold of a sect. What occurs if you kill the golden goose? How did Grace Road accumulate such immense power? To what extent does its influence stretch? Why has no one intervened to halt them? We traveled there ourselves to uncover the truth. Day 1. This inquiry naturally is a task for Vali. He'd previously journeyed to Ethiopia for us, witnessing the birth of a new ocean. It didn't take much persuasion for him to accept this challenge. I was super happy when Fern asked me to go to the other side of the world to join a cult. Now he's embarked on a 48-hour journey from Vienna to Fiji. This is the farthest away I've ever been from home. It's literally the exact opposite side of the world. Voli plans to spend almost a week in Fiji, interviewing various individuals about Grace Road, or at least attempting to. We hear snippets like, "Nothing much about them. I've heard lots of rumors, but it was like out of my business." Others shared, "All I know is that they say they are a Christian-based restaurant, but from what I've heard through rumors, they're operating as some sort of cult." Another source commented, "I've had conversations with them. It's a confidential meeting, so I can't say more. From what I've heard, it's enough for me to know that this isn't a church." There are deeply troubling questions that only Grace Road can address, and obtaining answers from them, as you'll see, isn't simple. They've refused to communicate with us, claim ignorance of our activities, yet they're actively trying to silence us. If that doesn't signal a major red flag, I don't know what does. All right, but let's rewind to the beginning. Long before Voli's plane landed in Nadi, our story commences in Seoul, South Korea, amidst auto repair shops within an old factory building. On a Sunday morning in 2008, the woman leading the service, dressed in a blazer, is named Shin Ok-ju. She had dedicated 3 years to evangelizing in China, and also preached in Philadelphia and South Korea. Shin asserted she received training from the Presbyterian Church, then one of South Korea's largest Christian denominations. However, the Presbyterian Church firmly disputes Shin's account. It hardly matters now. By this time, Shin had established her own congregation, Grace Road, and she harbored distinct visions for humanity's destiny. Shin proclaims that Jesus will soon make his second advent to earth. However, she warns, the world must first survive an apocalyptic event. For decades, South Korea has seen a proliferation of cults. In the early 2000s, approximately 300,000 South Koreans were reportedly members of 100 different organizations. Presently, over 300 active cults operate within the nation. Some specialists link this phenomenon to the profound national scars of colonialism and conflict. Historically, these groups provided community, solace, and spiritual redemption. Now, they offer esoteric wisdom and a route to both financial and spiritual well-being. Many such cults spark debate. Some pose clear dangers. Eventually, Shin captivated hundreds of adherents with her persuasive messages. To her, there was only one path to evade the impending catastrophe: locate a promised land where she and her congregation could endure global famine and nuclear devastation. Their objective was to establish extensive farms to help sustain the world during a period of crisis. This was the doctrine Shin Ok-ju espoused from her pulpit. McGarry, an editor for the Pacific region at the OCCR, PITHA, Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, has diligently investigated Grace Road for years. Around 2014, Shin's son, Daniel Kim, embarked on a quest to locate this promised land. He sought a region with no winter, maintaining a consistent warmth between 20 and 30 Celsius. During his purported search, he visited 60 nations, ultimately leading him to Fiji. This archipelago boasts 332 islands and over 500 islets, sprawling across an ocean expanse nearly twice the size of the Gulf of Mexico. Only about 100 are populated, with fewer than 1 million residents. Predominantly on the main island of Viti Levu, home to the capital, Suva. Until 1970, Fiji was part of the British Empire, thus establishing English as its official language. Due to India's simultaneous British rule, many Indians settled in Fiji. Today, alongside English residents also speak Fijian Hindi and the indigenous Itoke language. As he put it, at the end of the day, all you hear are stories, but it's important for us to see it and believe it. We can't just depend on the stories we hear. In 2014, Kim finalized his evaluation of Fiji as the potential promised land. He was prepared to depart for his next stop, Nepal, when unforeseen circumstances stranded him in Fiji. He interpreted this as a divine sign, concluding his spiritual journey there. Shortly thereafter, Grace Road publicly declared they possessed unequivocal proof. This was the divine land God had ordained. Consequently, Daniel Kim's mother, Shin Ok-ju, and hundreds of followers relocated to the island. Skeptics, however, propose a more pragmatic explanation, suggesting no extensive search or higher intervention was necessary. As one source noted, there used to be a direct flight from Seoul to Nadi. That's it. No, it was a direct flight. Reverend Penny James serves as the General Secretary of the Pacific Conference of Churches, an organization uniting various denominations across the Pacific. He is also a minister within Fiji's Methodist Church. He stated, "I can tell you that I have been aware of the Grace Road group for about 11 years now. I was first approached by Korean faith groups engaged in missionary work in Fiji, who wanted to voice their concerns about some of the new sects emerging. Fijians weren't the only ones suspicious of Grace Road in South Korea. The Presbyterian Church initiated an inquiry into Shin Ok-ju,
compiling proof of her hazardous nature. To cure a schizophrenic man, she instructed her adherents to bind him with duct tape. His circulation subsequently failed, necessitating a leg amputation. By September 2014, the Presbyterian Church formally denounced Shin as a heretic. Deacon Lee was among those spearheading the opposition against her profound affront that would not remain unaddressed. Slunday. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, a service was about to commence at the Day Methodist Church in Seoul. Outside, several dozen Grace Road members demonstrated. Abruptly, some stormed the building, violently assaulting church official Deacon Lee. They seized him, dragging him down the stairs. It's believed they viewed him as a demon, a notion reportedly instilled by Shin herself. Despite the assault, she was never prosecuted. However, the incident placed her squarely on the radar of both South Korean media and law enforcement. This only amplified the urgency to permanently establish Grace Road in Fiji, the supposed sanctuary destined to protect its adherents from famine and nuclear destruction. These were people who journeyed 8,000 kilometers from South Korea. It makes you wonder, how aware are the locals, like those on this bus, of this sect and the controversies surrounding it? How truly troubled is this paradise? Is it paradise on earth? Really? It's roughly a 3 to 4 hour drive from Nadi to Shu, and this route is dotted with Grace Road businesses, supermarkets, gas stations, restaurants, and more. A crucial question arises. Why did they initially present themselves as a business rather than a church? Clearly, they already possessed a strategy for entry. They would establish themselves as a foreign investor, then expand their presence from that foundation. In April 2014, Grace Road inaugurated their Fijian presence with a farm spanning 3.8 hectares, ample space for cultivating rice and vegetables. This initial move seemed logical, aligning with their prophecy of an impending global famine and their stated mission to feed the world during hardship. Yet, A peculiar development soon followed. The cult embarked on a rapid expansion. 4. By 2015, they launched their inaugural restaurant, Grace Road Kitchen, quickly followed by Noodles Story, Sunny Pizza, Awesome Grill, Fierce Chicken, Snowy House, and Patisserie Pacifica. Grace Road
even established its own construction firm, handling projects for their enterprises, private clients, and even the government. In a gesture befitting true Christians, they assisted in rebuilding a village devastated by Cyclone Winston in 2016. A year later, they controversially renovated and expanded Prime Minister Bainimarama's residence, allegedly costing Fijian taxpayers approximately $3 million. That same year, the group received a business award, personally presented by Bainimarama. By this juncture, over 100 local Fijians were employed by Grace Road. But the workforce's majority, at least 300, was Korean, and their growth showed no signs of slowing. Grace Road continued to open supermarkets, hardware stores, a dental clinic, shoe stores, and beauty salons. At the helm of this burgeoning empire were Daniel Kim and his mother, Shin Ok-ju, constantly shaking hands, cutting ribbons, and overseeing its proliferation. For a considerable period, the true operations behind Grace Road's facade remained hidden. Our goal is to expose what's genuinely occurring here. During his extensive flight to Fiji, Vali productively utilized his time, honing his problem-solving and logical thinking abilities thanks to our sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is an interactive learning platform featuring thousands of visual, hands-on lessons spanning subjects from math and AI to programming. For instance, here you're tasked with making the green duck vanish using a function. You learn by active engagement, a method up to 6 times more effective than conventional lectures. Don't be misled by the charming animations. The puzzles progressively increase in difficulty. All courses are meticulously developed by educators, researchers, and experts from prestigious institutions. Brilliant is accessible via both its app and your PC or laptop. Scan this QR code or visit brilliant.org/fern to begin acquiring new proficiencies with Brilliant. Our exclusive link grants you 20% off their annual subscription, providing full access to the platform's complete offerings. We're currently en route to Nadi, the very location where Grace Road's operations commenced their headquarters. Grace Farms. This is the road, the Grace Road. Throughout his journey, Voli receives support from Lonnie, a Fijian filmmaker. Behind the scenes, Jim and Lotta manage logistics and access, while Mary handles the driving. Even prior to Voli's arrival, the team attempted to connect with Grace Road, sending emails and dialing numerous contact numbers. Calls often failed, were rerouted, or connected to that distinctive high-pitched fax line sound. Eventually, 2 team members managed to get through. One recounted, "I spoke to a lovely gentleman on one of the numbers I called, and he said, email the admin. Email the admin address." So I did. I'm still waiting for a response from them. I've tried that number again. Nobody's answered by now. It appears Lonnie's number has since been blocked. As we near Grace Road headquarters, the question is, what's our plan? Lonnie responds. So, I'm just going to go up to the front door and speak to them, explaining what we're trying to do in person, and see if we can really schedule a time to sit down with them for an on-camera discussion. Lonnie and Jim entered the building. After some time, they reappear. "Come on, why are you walking so slow?" "We want to know what they told you," Jim explains. "We went up to the office. They grew nervous the moment we mentioned being part of a documentary crew and wanting to speak with someone. You could distinctly feel the shift in the atmosphere. They refused to provide any direct contact information or an address. I asked for a number. They simply said no. Foley then interjects, "Just let me in," unable to film inside Grace Road's headquarters or interview officials. Foley can, however, visit the cult's various restaurants. Feedback on the food was overwhelmingly positive. I love the food they have, the menu they prepare. The pizzas are good. They have good taste, especially the pizza. I love the pizza. It's a great place to eat. I like their food and coffee. Foley himself comments, "Okay, we're at Olive Tree, and I'm having some carbonara rice cakes, and I have to say, it's really, really good." Later, we are at Pacifica and Fierce Chicken having a coffee. The coffee is good, I can tell you that. And the rest I'll tell you a bit later. So let's take a look. Excellent food, contemporary decor. It's not a hint of an abusive doomsday cult in sight. But then you notice the signs, proclaiming the brightest, cleanest, kindest, and most honest eternal group that sees and delivers the eternal love of God. An intriguing world map is displayed, declaring Fiji the center of the world, the sole island straddling both yesterday and today. And then these, the Booklet of Truth by Reverend Shin Ok-ju. The Bainimarama agenda wasn't just a political stance. It was a complex mix of democratic elections and authoritarian rule that lasted 16 years. After seizing power in a 2006 coup, he won 2 elections. But by 2022, with the economy struggling, the public mood shifted, and he lost his majority. During his rule, the controversial Grace Road Group thrived. The Fiji Development Bank invested heavily in them, and in return, Bainimarama used them for his political advantage. They were like a protected species. Free speech laws meant almost no one could criticize them. Even when police interviewed witnesses about beatings and abuse within the group, nothing happened. It seems Grace Road's authoritarian style was a perfect match for the government's own. Then things took a turn. On our 5th day filming here, we got an unexpected call. Grace Road's lawyers contacted Film Fiji, demanding they revoke our filming permits. They want us shut down.
Our filming permits were on the line. Getting them cancelled meant production would stop dead in its tracks. Our producer, Lonnie, had to deal with Grace Road's lawyers directly. They were trying to silence us, demanding our permits be revoked immediately. If that's not a massive red flag, I don't know what is. Despite their best efforts, we kept our permit. But why would they try so hard to stop us? Well, it was the summer of 2018, 4 years after they set up in Fiji. Their leader, Shin Ok-ju, flew back to South Korea, only to be arrested right at the airport. Why? Horrific allegations had surfaced about a ritual they call the threshing floor. It's a practice where they claim to beat the sins out of their members. We've seen footage, and it's truly gruesome. The Korean authorities had enough evidence to act. This story was just getting started.
Violent methods are also believed to have been implemented in Fiji, seemingly as a means of enforcing discipline within the church community. And by all accounts we've encountered, that discipline is extraordinarily stringent. A former worker named Marama corroborated this. having been employed at Grace Road's farms and their supermarkets. She described how members would suffer head injuries but claim they were going to the hospital. She couldn't independently confirm Murama's specific assertions. Nevertheless, her narrative aligns with numerous other reports from former workers, including a young woman, Voli, coincidentally met by the roadside. This young woman described the physical retribution. If they did something wrong, I heard they'd get a high-level punishment from the leaders, and then later they'd say, "I fell." We were also unable to independently verify her claims. However, she asserts having worked at Grace Farms for 2 months as a temporary job. Despite harsh conditions generally affecting all employees, a distinct pattern emerged. Grace Road appeared to operate as a two-tiered society. On one side were local Fijians who, while experiencing some difficulties, could return home. On the other, the predominantly Korean church members endured far more severe treatment. They were confined to barracks. Numerous accusations have been leveled, including the forceful separation of families, the involuntary detention of individuals, confiscation of passports, in denial of the right to travel, effectively trapping them within the church. Reports detail inadequate sustenance, deplorable living quarters, excessive work hours far exceeding standard labor practices, and physical abuse. Tragically, much of this was allegedly also endured in 2014 by then 21-year-old Swan Lee. Following cancer surgery, Swan Lee's mother joined Grace Road and sought recovery in Fiji. Swan paused her studies to accompany her for 2 weeks. Shin Ok-ju's sermons were profoundly unsettling, marked by abundant wailing, shouting, and verbal abuse, where she would hurl awful names at congregants. When Swan attempted to leave, she quickly realized something was amiss. She recounts, "Actually, I started packing the day before. When I went to, pack my computer or my laptop, it was gone. I realized my passport was gone. I was panicking a lot. I was screaming for help." Clad only in pajamas and flip-flops, she orchestrated her escape. Despite others trying to obstruct her, she broke free, running directly toward a police car. Authorities assisted her in obtaining an emergency passport at the South Korean embassy. All the while, Grace Road members pursued her, and even her own mother pleaded with her to remain. Yet Swan left her mother behind in Fiji, successfully returning to South Korea. Grace Road appears to govern its adherents with an unyielding grip. The cult commands a vast commercial empire and maintains strong connections with the nation's authoritarian leader. Thus, one might speculate, why wouldn't they endeavor to fully dominate their promised land? While Shin Ok-ju began her term in prison, South Korean authorities intensified their efforts against Grace Road. Soon after her apprehension in Seoul, they prepared another operation. 17 officers were dispatched on a clandestine mission to Fiji. There, they coordinated with local police, initiating a joint operation in the dead of night. They converged on the primary multi-acre farm, the church's central headquarters, conducting a late-night sweep to apprehend individuals and secure evidence before anyone could react. In the ensuing days, 6 South Korean citizens, including Shin's son Daniel Kim, were arrested. The clandestine mission initially appeared to be a resounding triumph. However, the precise sequence of events remains shrouded in mystery. What is known is that the courts swiftly intervened. Shortly after this judicial action, Fijian police announced, "Okay, look, we're going to take over this investigation." Consequently, the Korean police contingent, expecting to return with numerous individuals in custody, ultimately departed empty-handed. An Interpol red notice was issued around that time for Daniel Kim, and likely for others. Yet in Fiji, this seemed to be largely ignored. While behind-the-scenes investigations may have persisted, for years they yielded no tangible results. Thus, Daniel Kim resumed business as usual. Grace Road launched new ventures and continued its growth, expanding from over 30 enterprises to 54 in the period following these raids. Grace Road, at that juncture, became one of Fiji's largest private employers. They consistently diversified their operations, from dental clinics to gasoline stations, with the latter reportedly managed in partnership with ExxonMobil, and these stations remain active today. We inquired with ExxonMobil regarding their awareness of the controversy. We reached out to Grace Road for comment on their expansion despite the serious allegations, but they didn't respond. In 2019, the founder, Shin Ok-ju, was sentenced to 6 years in a South Korean prison for fraud and violence against her followers in Fiji. Her son Daniel Kim took over controlling vast funds and influence. But not everyone in Fiji was silent. Opposition leader Setavini Rabuka called for an immediate investigation, saying authorities couldn't ignore allegations of torture and forced labor. Yet for years, the government under Bainimarama let the cult operate freely. Then, in 2022, everything changed. Bainimarama was voted out, and Rabuka became prime minister. Trouble was brewing for Grace Road. In September 2023, the new government cracked down, deporting some members and declaring others, including Daniel Kim, as fugitives. Despite Kim's public protests, he was taken into custody. Now, the cult faces its biggest threat yet: investigations. For the present, their diverse businesses, ranging from agriculture and construction to restaurants, supermarkets, and gasoline stations, continue to operate. The crucial question remains, how long can this last? This apprehension, it seems, has also begun to weigh on the Fijian government. Grace Road, in a public statement, asserts its role in generating employment for rural development, boasting over 800 local workers and positioning itself as one of the nation's foremost employers. Implications are clear, as one expert notes. Well, look, let's be realistic. Grace Road is a significant economic driver. Tourism has not rebounded to pre-COVID levels. Grace Road offers an alternative employment sector to the tourism industry. So if you summarily pull the plug on 54 companies operating across a significant portion of the country's main island, that could entail some pretty serious repercussions. Fast forward to December 2024, 400 days after Kim's incarceration, and 6 months before Voli's journey to Fiji. A multitude of Grace Road members and employees have congregated before the appeals court in Suva, the capital. This is the culmination of their anticipation. Daniel Kim emerges alongside another Grace Road official. He is free. This was a routine court procedure. He was granted provisional liberty pending a judicial review. The de facto leader of Grace Road is out on bail. Remarkably, no one in Fiji has been prosecuted for the cult's alleged clandestine activities, as one observer remarks. I know there are a great many people who feel that there should be prosecutions. That is not a view that's shared by the public prosecutor in Fiji at this time. Even the U.S. government, in its latest report on human trafficking, censures Fiji, noting that no Grace Road member has ever faced prosecution or conviction. A palpable shift has occurred within the Fijian government, transitioning from earlier unequivocal demands to a significantly more circumspect stance. The government openly expresses its disappointment that Grace Road is now reportedly reevaluating new investments in Fiji. They emphasize their consistent cordiality toward Grace Road and their admiration for the updated retail standards the group introduced to the nation. Prevalent concern now revolves around the potential economic fallout. It's encapsulated by this observation. Currently, there is a great deal of concern about what happens if you effectively kill this golden goose, if you remove one of the substantial private sector drivers in the Fijian economy at this time. Now on the ground, Voli aims to question government officials about these economic concerns. And we seek to understand why investigations into Grace Road persistently falter. According to the OCCRP, Fijian authorities interviewed crucial witnesses to beatings and other abuses over 5 years ago. So, what accounts for this protracted delay? While interviews were initially arranged, a series of unfortunate events intervened. For instance, key government members found themselves stranded on another island, a 6-hour journey away. One staff member explained, "Most of the government officials actually like this week. They have a super intense week, right?" Fortunately, Lonnie had already secured commitments from individual ministers and was attempting to reschedule new appointments. However, more than 2 weeks later, this was her update. "I spent Monday morning at Kamikamika and Napoto's office trying to lock interview times. Both these ministers have been advised not to make any public comments regarding Grace Road. Since both offices have active interests and files before them, any public comments have a high chance of putting both them and their ministry in a precarious position. We submitted written inquiries, but received no response. Similarly, we contacted the Grace Road group, yet unsurprisingly, they also offered no comment." Lonnie drew parallels to Fiji's colonial past, noting how the UK initially sought to conquer, but ultimately had to integrate. She holds a similar optimism for Grace Road, that external forces arriving in Fiji with ill intentions might, in some manner, be transformed for the better. This sentiment is often echoed. You're saying, oh, well, that's okay. Over there, we still go and buy their pizzas because their pizzas are good. You know, that kind of thinking. Oh, well, no, that's the chicken. That's not the church. No, it's all connected. Our comfort and our convenience are more important than our values and our ethics. I think that's where we start to fail as people and as Christians. Folly reflects. You see, I came here to truly grasp what Grace Road is about. And frankly, obtaining answers to these questions has been exceptionally challenging.